Hello and welcome back to All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and my guest is Loren Taylor, former city council person right here in the city of Oakland. Loren, when we went to break, we were talking about structural deficit, etc. Let's go a little further. Does the budget send a message to what your priorities are in the city of Oakland? And if so, what message is this budget sending?
Budgets absolutely reflect the values and priorities that you have as leadership. And in terms of moving the city forward, I think the high level headlines when it was announced by Mayor Tao was that we are saving jobs. We're not losing any jobs. We are going to continue to address this deficit without making any of I will say, those tough choices that other administrations have made when it comes to uh, drawing down, reducing some of the staff in some area or shifting. I think that's clearly a statement of what the values are. The reduction of police force in terms of reducing freezing positions and reducing the
What
headcount
impact
down.
is that likely to have realistically on what's going on in Oakland in terms of public safety? But public safety is a real issue in the city of Oakland. I don't care what anybody says because it is perceived as such, and therefore it is.
Absolutely. You're only as strong as your brand. And I will say that it's not just a perception, but there are some very clear realities that we have when it comes to public safety and the challenges. If people are calling for 911 and not getting any response and
And
giving
they
up,
are, and they're not getting responses.
absolutely. We look at those who are not going downtown. I just talked to parents.
Yes, indeed.
I just
Talk about that.
I just talked to parents at my kid's school, and they have said that they no longer go out in Oakland. They instead go to Dublin, Pleasanton, Walnut Creek, Emeryville, even other places because they're afraid of their car getting sort of bipped.
And that's a reality.
That is
that's
a reality.
Real reality.
That's a frequent reality. They're afraid of the violence that we've seen happening sporadically and erratically without any kind of order and just a general sense of lawlessness. So that is real. And the way to get on top of that is not to reduce the number of police officers that we have available to respond, available to investigate these crimes.
Well, why is the budget being proposed to reduce rather than maybe increase?
Well, I think clearly there are priorities that have been made, choices made by the administration that we can afford, or there's a belief that we can afford to reduce police, and these other investments will are more important and do better for our city. I am not in agreement with that. I think that we do need to have a strong presence of officers to respond while we are also investing in these other solutions to improve quality of life within
What
our
should
city.
the city council do when they receive, well, they already received it, when they review this budget and have public hearings on it or whatever? What should they do? It's a difficult decision, but what should the council do?
Well, what I'll say is that I'm still studying the line item details of the budget. So I'm not going to give you that level of granularity at this point. But we've got to focus on the principles. Principles of safety, priorities of growth. We need to be able to make investments now that will ensure the long-term growth, viability of our city, job creation, creating greater tax bases and revenue so that we can change that structural deficit that we were talking about earlier and have more revenues to invest in our community, in our residents, and the quality of life.
Well, how are we going to grow jobs in Oakland when you got this type of a situation where crime seems to be just controlling everything?
Well, you're absolutely right. We've got to be able to work with businesses. The number one way you grow jobs is you support your businesses so that they can hire more people. And
but most businesses feel as though that they're being abandoned when there's nobody. They open a business and then somebody immediately breaks into it.
Right. And that gets to another, I will say, concern that I have with the budget as it's proposed is it's taking the economic development department, whose job is to work with these businesses and actually give them the support that they need so that they aren't feeling like they're alone. And it's taking that group and integrating it into the building and planning department. And when you take two groups, you're going to, if you don't manage it well, you're going to cannibalize the activity of the other. And I'm afraid that because you have this large building and planning group and a smaller, less well invested economic development group, you're going to cut our economic development, our growth, our business support off even more so than it has been to date. And that I think is a real concern. So we have to make sure that we keep eyes on how we grow our economy and not just focused on these other elements that have been lifted up by the mayor's budget.
So you think the merger of those two departments was not a good decision?
I don't think that that's a good decision. I've talked to other cities who have had and experimented with an economic development department as part of this larger building and planning group, and they have identified the fact that there's that conflict, and usually it's the building and planning process that wins because that's where you have developers that are trying to get permits through and process, and so that consumes the resources, and you end up with this reactionary economic group that's only responding to loud business voices when there's an issue, but not actually growing and creating new value, which is what we need here in Oakland.
Growing and creating new value is what we need here in the city of Oakland. Don't touch that remote. We're going to have to go to break, so we will be right back with All About Community. Again, my name is Robert L. Harris. I am your host, and my guest is Loren Taylor, former city council person right here in the city of Oakland. We will be right back.